Good evening once again, and welcome to the Diamonds in the Rough webinar series. These webinars are sponsored by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Kappa Foundation. Tonight we have a very exciting webinar that's going to talk to you about social media and how to stand out and what your resume means. This evening's presenter is Mr. Thomas McCaleb, and he's going to actually show you some very exciting things. Brother McCaleb, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, good brother. Give me just a second to get going here. All right. Well, thanks again, like I said, for having me. I'm really excited to spend a little bit of time talking about this evening. One, because I'm passionate about it, and two, because it can make you a lot of money or it can end up losing you a lot of money. So I like to share that information with people because it's important. So we'll go ahead and get started with the slide deck, but I'm going to break out of the slide deck and get into some real-time tools just to show you a little bit of what actually exists on the internet and in the field today. So the purpose of going to college is to get the dream job that you're looking for. And there are some things you can do to enhance that, and there's some things you can do to actually put that in the toilet, even though you end up with a degree. Let's talk a little bit about that. So we'll talk about digital footprints. And don't worry, for those of you on the call that are not technical, we are not going to get that technical. But it is important that you guard your digital ID like you guard your social security card. Footprints can tell where you've been, and they often can show where you're going. You use footprints to hunt things, and you can track down people. You can, like people, track down animals. The same is true on the internet. There's tools out there that I can utilize as a technology professional to find out what you're looking at, how long you were looking at it, and what you're interested in, to forecast what you're going to be interested in the future. And these tools do not cost a lot of money, and businesses are using them to find out everything about you, from your preferences to your friends to your job to your job history and things like that. I apologize for that. Let me take a quick drink. Okay. You can use some tools like that to find out where jobs hide. So sometimes jobs are hidden in specific places, and if you're not given the information, you might miss out on a very lucrative opportunity. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And lastly, and we'll talk about this a bunch tonight, treat all social media as public. Again, you'll see some tools tonight that you don't have access to, but realize every company has access to these tools today, and they use them to include you or exclude you based on what they're looking for. Okay. So let me drop out of the presentation real quick. So here's a free tool on the internet. It's called the Wayback Machine. And what the Wayback Machine does is it archives certain pieces of the internet all of the time. So things that you think may be taken down actually are not taken down. You can get to them, and you can get to them for free. And the purpose of me showing you this is, if this is out here for free, what could I actually pay for? So what I'll do is go to Nike's website and we'll pick something that'll come up relatively quickly, from 2010. Okay. In March, you can see there's a couple of dates that they archived. Oh, give me just a second. and we'll give it just a second. Well, it looks like I'm having a little bit of network problems. And if you see this little loading, if I gave it enough time, it would actually, well, there it is. So there's Nike's website from March 14th of 2011. If you went to Nike.com, that is not their website today. Right? That's the current Nike website. The reason I want to share this with you, like I said, everything to do with you that's digital, you need to treat it as public, and you need to treat it like it never goes away. So you need to guard your personal profile online, and that includes things like LinkedIn, and it also includes things like Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat, all of those things that they tell you, well, if you keep it private, no one can get to it. And I can tell you that's false, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. All right, so back to the presentation. So the reason we start out a resume conversation going right into digital is because this is the biggest tool used in business today to find individuals looking for jobs. And I know some of you are coming out of college or still in college or maybe even in high school, and you think, well, I don't need a LinkedIn profile just yet. And I would tell you that is also false, because people search LinkedIn for things like internships or giveaways that they're looking for scholarship money when they're targeting audiences. And once I get behind the scenes of the tool, you'll understand a little bit of what I'm talking about. So I would encourage everybody on the call to create a LinkedIn profile, and it is really easy to do. If you can create a Facebook account, or for the older people on the phone, if you had a MySpace, you can easily have a LinkedIn account. You go to LinkedIn.com, and it is free, and click the sign up button. And that after you create your password, it has a little widget that'll walk you through how to set up the account. And that's that. But that will not make you stand out. What can you do to make your LinkedIn profile stand out in the crowd? One, get a professional picture. And this doesn't mean a selfie or have your buddy take one of you standing against the wall. It means go to JCPenney or go to Walmart or go to Walgreens and let them take a picture of you in the appropriate attire, which is a coat and tie or a button-down polo or a dress if you're a lady. You want to look your absolute best in this photo because, believe it or not, I also recruit on the side. LinkedIn profiles with no photo often get skipped before reading the content. And there's some good people out there that just don't have a photo, or even worse, have a photo with their dog, or have a photo with their cat, or have a photo with their buddies. We're not hiring your cat. We're hiring you. Let's keep it professional. The next thing is you want to make sure your profile is complete. On the side, it'll have a guide that tells you what percent your profile is what percent of your profile is complete. My apologies. You want to make sure this is as close to 100% as possible, because there's analytics behind the scenes or things that search those words. And if you do not have those words filled in, you may miss out on the job. There are no humans behind the scenes of LinkedIn. This is all computers and technology. Get a custom URL. And this is good for a couple of different reasons. And I'll make the presentation available after the call today. And if you have any questions, you can get my contact info. But this is really important because it makes you easy to find. To find me on LinkedIn, I actually have it memorized because it's my first and last name as one word. So it's LinkedIn /n or / Thomas McCaleb. That way, I can tell people that are looking for me what my profile is without having to think about it. Next, use action words when you're building your LinkedIn profile, and this will come up again when we talk about resumes. You want to be talking about things that you lead or money that you save or things that you create. And for the younger people on the call, you want to talk about the groups that you're in where you're the leader. And if you are not the leader of something, you want to volunteer to lead something that you're passionate in. And it doesn't have to be something giant. Okay. It's also important that you have 50 connections or greater. And I'm over 500 connections, but when you first get started after the webinar today, it'll be easy for you to connect to someone because the chances are you already know somebody on LinkedIn. So spend some time searching around, find a few of your friends, connect to each other. It's important to have 50 connections or greater for a few different reasons. One, people with less than 50 connections are viewed as potentially technology adverse. Why don't you have 50 connections? It's really easy to get 50 connections. So maybe you're scared of technology. That'll scare off recruiters. Second thing, well, maybe they're new to LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn has been around for a very long time, and people know that are in the recruiting industry what they're looking for when they're looking for candidates. If your profile is new, well, that may set off an alarm. And whether it's true or not, you don't want to be in that pile. You want to be in the pile that gets selected. LinkedIn is not the only job board. In fact, there's many job boards out there. Some of those job boards are specialized. So it's important that you know the specialized job boards that have to do with your career path. Here's a few on the screen. I'm in technology, like I said earlier, and the one for technologists is Dice. While LinkedIn is the biggest one, and there's others out there you may have heard of, like Monster or Career Builder, these specific ones will only have individuals based in those specific career fields. So Higher Ed Jobs has things for jobs in higher education or in colleges. USA Jobs has the federal government jobs, etc. And if you don't know the one for your specific career field, search it on the internet and it'll pop up easily via Google. Or reach out to me and I can give you some help. Also, don't forget about the specific job sites for the companies that you want to work for. I intentionally picked these companies because they don't have the name up, but just by their logo, you know who they are, right? So Starbucks, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, they all have company career websites, and those have the careers across the globe. If you don't believe me, take a look at Microsoft's website and you can get a job, whether that's here in Texas, like I am in, or all the way across the globe in Australia. Write down the target list of your companies and browse those sites and see what they're looking for and tailor your LinkedIn so that when those computers start searching, you can be found. Also, another good tip about the company websites is you can set up something called an agent. So once you create your profile or link your LinkedIn profile to it, and you can do that with all of these, you can tell Microsoft's website, when you see these kinds of jobs in this location, shoot me an email. And voila, you'll get an email that says, hey, we found something that you may be interested in. Click here if you want to move forward. It's as simple as that. So don't forget those dream companies you want to work for because they want you to work there as well. Okay. So before we go on to your actual resume, there's a few other things I want to show you behind the scenes of LinkedIn. So here's my LinkedIn profile. And I think it's important to walk you through a profile that's pretty complete, just so you can have an idea of what you're building. So yours may not look like this when you first get started, but you want to fill in things like your career, and you'll see my career here at Strasburger and JCPenney and Celanese, but you also want to fill in organizations that you work with. So there's some shots of me with our Kappa Leaguers when we were raising money for them. We'll scroll down. This works just like your resume does. It'll have certain categories and certain areas for certain things that you are interested in, organizations that you're working with, or experiences that you have. Here, you can see my volunteer experience, some of it. And when you see the show more, that'll tell you that I have more volunteer experience than they show. It is important that you put things that you volunteer with on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile. These words are also searchable and will make you a more attractive candidate to recruiters. Education. You do not want to put education on your LinkedIn that you have not completed. One big pet peeve for recruiters is when they run their searches and they say, well, I'm looking for an engineer that has a bachelor's degree in computer science. And you click that and say that you have that degree, thinking or hoping that they won't check it. And when we check it, you don't have it. Well, not only have you wasted our time, but we wasted your time. Time is valuable, so treat it as such. But you want to make sure that your education is complete there. And this is a good time to talk about lifelong learning. So you can get a look at some of my education. And some of this education you can see is relatively recent. And that's because in today's society, if you're going to remain competitive, you have to always be learning. And it doesn't have to be something as giant as another degree. It can be a certification. It can be something that you're interested in. It can be something along the lines for your volunteer pursuits, but you have to continuously be learning. So whether you're 18 and in high school headed off to college listening to me this evening, or you're 60 years old, and retired at the house, I would tell you, you should do something to sharpen your tools each year. Okay, so we'll bounce back to the top of this. Like I said, you want to make sure that your title is correct. You'll get this little N icon when you reach 500 connections. I'm trying to see if I can make it tell you how many connections I have, but it'll just tell you over 500. And it is important, like I said, to maximize the amount of connections that you have. And then you can follow companies that you are interested in. So here's some of the companies that I follow. And this works just like Twitter. These companies know that I'm following them, and they put things out there for me to consume. And when they're looking for people like me, they have easy access to me because I've already told them that I'm following them, so they have access to my profile. Just like Facebook, for those of you that have Facebook, LinkedIn has settings to keep your information private. Well, kind of private. Brother Jackson and I had a quick conversation before the webinar started this evening, and Brother Jackson and I are not connected on LinkedIn. The way you can tell if you're connected to someone is they'll have a little 1 beside their name when you look them up. So let's look somebody up so you can see. Okay. Here's another one of my fraternity brothers, Brother Dean Jones. He works at Microsoft, and I am connected to him. See the little 1. Well, in the top right-hand corner of my LinkedIn, and this won't be on your LinkedIn because you're not a recruiter and you have not paid for this tool, but it says LinkedIn Recruiter. And what that is it gives recruiters access to all of the profiles on LinkedIn. Whether you are connected to me or not, with the click of a button, I'm behind the scenes of your profile. And I'm behind the scenes of everybody that you're connected to, which is a great thing if you're looking for a job, right? You want recruiters to have access to your data. But if for some reason you put something on there that shouldn't be on there, or you have a weird picture, or you think it's not searchable, so you're going to do what you want to do, I'm here to tell you, like I said at the beginning with the Wayback Machine, all social media, whether that's business or personal, is public. Now, some of it has a cost to get to it, but most of it doesn't. So that concludes what I want to talk about with LinkedIn. Again, before I step away from this is the single biggest tool that recruiters use to find you. So make sure you have one, make sure it's complete, and make sure that you're keeping it up to date. Okay. And now onto your actual resume. Like we said at the beginning of this, it's your resume and it's time to shine. Your resume will talk for you when you don't get to talk for yourself. So you want to make sure it is the absolute best and it is saying exactly what you want it to say for you when you are there and when you are not there. Okay? The person on the right is Phil Jackson. He's a 13-time NBA champion, 11 times as a coach, and he has the winningest record ever for a coach. You may know him because he coached Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and many others. When you see Phil Jackson, you think winner. That's one resume for Phil Jackson. Okay? He also lost 4 times in the semifinals. Verbiage matters on your resume. If you look at that, you could say, well, he gets to the finals and he loses. And I guess that's true. But another way to say that is, if you look at the data, when he lost in the semifinals those 4 times, every single time after that, they won the championship. Every single time. So Phil Jackson's real resume is, even when they lose, they work hard, they make changes, they get better, and they win the championship. Now that says something totally different. So verbiage matters. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say it, even on your resume. So here's a few resume tips, because we won't have to go into super depth, because your resume is going to kind of flow off of your digital profile resume or your LinkedIn. Here's some quick tips that make my resume stand out from my competition. And that's what this is. That's why I showed Phil Jackson at the front of this. Competing for jobs is like being a professional athlete. You have to work really hard. You have to be prepared. And when the time comes, you have to execute to win the job that you're looking for. So first off, formatting. Being a recruiter myself, being married to a recruiter and being around a bunch of recruiters, I hear this all the time, but no fancy fonts. So I know that it is cool to have your name on your resume in cursive. Yeah, recruiters throw those in the garbage immediately. Again, use action words. What are you doing? What are you leading? How much money did you save? Use bullet points and keywords. There's lots of technology behind the internet, and there's lots of technology searching these resumes out there, and it searches from keywords. So you want to have the keywords for your industry nailed and put on your resume so that those machines can find you and get you in front of the right people. Use a professional email address. This is the Kappa Web series. So everybody knows, Thomas is the greatest Kappa at gmail.com. Well, while that might be my email address, and it isn't, you definitely don't want to put that on your resume. You want to have a resume that is reflective of your business profile. So I know that your very first email address, may be customized to something that you're interested in. Open a new email address. Gmail and Outlook are two of the largest email platforms, and they offer free email addresses every day. So your email address should be first name dot last name, or first name, last name together, or some combination of that makes sense to you, that people can find and identify you quickly so they can get in touch with you for that job. Just to let you know that I eat my own dog food, if you email thomas.mccaleb at almost any large email platform, you'll find me. So thomas.mccaleb at outlook.com is me. Thomas.mccaleb at gmail is me, because platforms change and what email is popular changes as well. When I first got into the business, MSN was popular. So I have an MSN address, and that's okay. You want it to be first name dot last name, or first initial last name, or something that you wouldn't be ashamed to tell your boss or your potential new boss, because that's who you're trying to catch anyway. All right, enough of that. You want to utilize help. So just like Kappa put on this web series this evening, you want to reach out to those business leaders that you respect, or your teachers, or the career counseling center at your school, and get some help on your resume or your LinkedIn profile. If you're not good with technology, find somebody that is good with technology that you know, and ask them to help you finish up your LinkedIn profile if it's not working for you. Students on the call, whether you're in high school or college, find somebody that's good at taking pictures. On campus, there's always one or two guys that are taking pictures for money. Have them come by your chapter and take professional photos of all of the brothers and get those on your LinkedIn. Take down those personal pictures. Have a business profile to get that job. Save your resume as a PDF. The reason that I tell people this is all of the other formats, and you can still edit PDFs, but it's the most difficult to edit. So when you put your information out there, you want it to be as secure as possible, and PDF allows that. Okay. Add jobs as you get them, or promotions. And this is something I see people forget all the time. So that when you're chasing that next new job, you're trying to remember what you did at your old job. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Keep your resume ready. Again, for the students, and I definitely wanted to have some content that was relevant to our younger audience this evening. While you may not have been at work for 20 years yet, and some of you haven't even been alive for 20 years yet, you have led things and you are doing things, and you want to reflect those things on your resume, whether that's your temp jobs or things you do in the summer, or your contract jobs, or businesses that you start, like your grass cutting job. You want to use those jobs to show that you are worth hiring. You are worth giving a chance to. Say yes to people that offer you their help, and ask for help of people that you respect. Closed mouths don't get fed. And the last couple things I want to share with you before I open or flip it back to Brother Howard is be ready all the time. And by this, I mean you want to have your resume with you at all times. And you might think, well, that's impossible. And I would tell you, no, it isn't. We all carry our cell phones around. And on my cell phone is my current resume. And you can save it on there or save it in an email and save it in your drafts so that when someone says, hey, I sure would like to get in touch with you, can you send me your resume? It's right there, ready to go. And who knows? That may be the difference between your dream job and a job. Tie everything together. And by that, I mean on your paper resume or your digital resume, have your phone number. That is important. You do not have to put your address. That is not as important as it used to be. Have your phone number with a professional business or a professional voicemail. No music in the background. No trying to sound like Barry White. No riddles or trying to say anything slick. Say who you are. Be polite. Ask for them to leave a message. Second thing about voicemail, you want to check your voicemail and clean it out. Another frustrating thing as a recruiter is to call who you think the ideal candidate is and their voicemail is full. Well, I can tell you I might get back to you, but I also can tell you I might not get back to you. Don't take that chance. Check your voicemail often. Clean out the voicemails that you don't need or have to keep so that when someone calls you that you want to talk to, they can leave you a voicemail. Practice talking about the contents of your resume. And by that, I mean, read through your job descriptions, read through your past experiences, be comfortable with what's on your resume so that when somebody asks you, hey, have you ever done this? Or hey, are you interested in this? Or tell me about a time when you did this, you can quickly pull up those examples from your resume that you're going to send them later and make it sound like the rock star that you are. Because you are. We just don't take a lot of time practicing that so it sounds less than desirable. Let's just be honest with each other. The last thing I want to say, and I kind of skipped over it because I got caught up in the voicemail thing because it's important, but back to tying everything together, and then I'll pitch it back to Brother Howard. Make sure that your LinkedIn has a link to your current resume. Just like I said, make sure that your current resume has a link to your LinkedIn. If this is all digital, they should be able to click on that link and get to a professional picture of you, which jogs their memory. It has your contact information in case they want to catch up with you. And you can even post a little video of yourself talking about something that you're passionate about or that you're good at to remind them that you are the person that should get that job. So, in closing, here's my contact information. I'm always available. If you need a little help with resumes or LinkedIn or anything technical, or if you're nervous about what you saw tonight from a privacy perspective, I've been in the IT industry for about 20 years or so. I've been a recruiter for just a short time, so we can talk through anything that comes to your mind. If there's anything I can do to help you land that next job of your dreams, it would be my absolute pleasure.
So now we're going to actually open up for questions. If anybody has any questions, please make sure you put them in the question box. I know that this is a very interesting topic as you talk about your LinkedIn profile and really your internet profile, which is out there. It's a new way for people to get to know you. We're in a digital world, and people need to stand out because everybody has similar things. And so what you're talking about, Brother Michaela, is very important because people do need to understand how to utilize these tools. And it's not just paper based either. One of the things that I know I talk about to students is doing both, making sure that they do have paper when they communicate to people, because you do have, I say that there's 5 generations in the workforce, and there's a lot of old school people. So you got to make sure that you're communicating with them as well.
Yeah.
Even though that everybody's in email form, but sometimes that personal letter means something totally different to that person than just an email, you know. So
Yes.
I think you covered everything well. I don't see any questions.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I think you did it. I think you brought up a very important point from my side. That follow up letter or thank you email after you get an interview or after you get a business card. If you see someone that you think, man, I sure would like to work at Microsoft, and you were fortunate enough to bump into Dean Jones and he gave you his card, don't be afraid to shoot him an email and say, hey, it was great to meet you today. If there's anything I can do to, you know, put my resume in your hand, let me know.
Excuse me. We do have a question that came in. For a person, one of our students has never had a job. So how would we format his or her resume, um, and to highlight the amount of organizations that he's been in?
Sure. So if it were me, because we've all been in that position, I would make sure that I was highlighting things that I was leading. So whether I was the captain of the debate club or the basketball team or led a youth group at my church, those kinds of things, and it's called transferable skills, are valuable to anybody that's looking for new employees. And it's also pretty valuable, talking about yesterday's call, when they're reviewing applications to get into college. These days, they talk more about a well-rounded student than they talk about straight A's. So things like, hey, I led the youth group actually mean something these days.
So speaking about that, I think that, students who are, you know, captains of the football team, basketball team, track team, things of that nature. Also, if they participate in student government, if they led a committee, um, that should be something that they talk about. Here's another question. So, do I expand on what it is about and what he did in the organization? Should it really be that detailed? So, when we're talking about the organization of a student, um, the question is really geared towards how detailed should we go on that resume, um, for their activities, and highlight who they are.
Sure. So I would tell you, if you haven't had a job, or if your jobs, are your starter jobs like restaurants or grocery stores or whatever your starter jobs are, I would say you want to have 2 to 3 bullet points for everything that you're articulating. By that I mean, I'm the captain of the basketball team. I was the leader of, our charity drive. That shows, hey, you can organize individuals to do something outside of basketball, even though you were the basketball team captain. So you want to have 2 or 3 bullet points per item that you're talking about.
Have you ever heard of an activities resume?
Yes, yes, I have.
And what are the highlights of that?
So activities resume. You, sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of network problem. So can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, cool. So activities resume, they are used to highlight things that you participate in, like, hey, I'm the basketball um, team captain. and all of the items that you do to prepare for something like that. So if you're a competitive swimmer, you may talk about, hey, here's the preparation that goes into a competitive swimmer, and here's the awards that I've won, and those kinds of things.
That sounds great. Um, so, when we think about that, and I think about this from a person who is in grammar school going into college, to help somebody who has to write a letter of recommendation for you, I think about the resume. Um, I think about what we also call a brag sheet. It's things to prepare so it helps that person that you're asking to write a letter of recommendation know a little bit more about you. They may know you from just one aspect, but to know something else about you will help strengthen their letters of recommendation. Do you agree?
I definitely agree with that. Um, when you're asking anyone to write a letter of recommendation, I, I would try to steer that letter, and that doesn't mean I want to write the letter, but I want to give you some things that you may not remember about me, because if you're like writing a letter of recommendation, you should know something about me. So here's a couple things you may not remember. And here's the reason that I want you to write this letter. So whether that's I'm trying to get into college, so I want you to highlight some of the, you know, academic strengths that I may have, or hey, I'm trying to get a job, so I want you to highlight some of the leadership or transferable skills that I may have. You can target that recommendation letter and you can help the person that's writing it.
It sounds really good. Um, so here's a follow-up question to the activities resume. So if I'm a student and I don't really have a lot of job experience, would an activities resume be better until I get the job experience?
Yes, it could be. It could be. Right. So a lot of times people that are hiring, if we're talking about hiring, understand that you're a student. So they don't expect you to have the same resume as me with 20 years of experience in one industry. But again, when we talk about transferable skills, and I would ask that all the young people on the call write that down, but transferable skills are what employers are looking for. So, can you lead a team? Can you speak in front of the room? Can you develop a presentation? Are you on time? Those kinds of things any employer will look for.
So we want to make sure that we're looking for things that help us stand out in the crowd, as we said. Um, so even if we are a student, there's ways that we can position ourselves in what we write to do that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Also, I would tell you, you probably, and on the slide it also said say yes. We have to start exploring opportunities that maybe you haven't explored before. Look into studying abroad, volunteer for a mission trip. That will expand your mind to go to a different country for a relatively low cost. And you can write that on your resume. And I would tell you, not many of the individuals that you're competing against will have that. So that's one of those things you can do to say, hey, I'm different than anyone else. I'm willing to go somewhere that I'm uncomfortable to do some things that, hey, I may not have thought of. I'm flexible.
very, very important information. Um, so there is somebody who has used an activities resume, and when they use it to show their leadership skills as well as any of the initiatives that they've taken. I think that that's a great thing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And if you write a resume today as a result of this call and think, man, I don't have a job. I don't have qualifications for a job-based resume, and I don't have qualifications for an activities-based resume. Well, that means you need to get involved with something. And I understand that not everybody is athletically inclined or not everybody's going to get straight A's, but there are lots of things, lots of activities out there that you can participate in and not only participate, but volunteer for a leadership role. And that doesn't always mean be the president. It can be the treasurer. That can be, the vice president. There's lots of things to showcase. Hey, I'm a leader and I add value.
It's wonderful. Um, so I'm going to ask again, are there any questions, any further comments that you'd like to make, and see if my co-host wants to come on and say anything?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. Again, my contact information is on the screen. If you need anything, I'm always around.
We appreciate you, Brother McCaleb. Um, so I'm going to just leave it open for another couple of minutes before we close off the call, just in case anybody has any questions. We've gotten a lot of useful tips this evening to help us understand how to utilize the technology that's there, which is very important. This technology is there to help us out, and we're hearing from somebody who works in the background on how this works for them. So that is very important for us. I do want to thank everybody once again for joining the call. We are going to take a break for a couple of days for our next set of webinars. If you see that we do have some coming up, our next one is going to be on May 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's going to be talking about financial literacy. We're spending a lot of time talking about financial literacy in preparing for college. We want to make sure that the students are prepared before they go to college and when they're in college. There are a lot of traps that happen when students go into college. They get all those credit card applications and things of that nature, how they deal with financial aid, how they deal with the financial aid office, if they get refunds, what they need to do for work study. So we're going to be talking about that type of level of information and understanding credit as well. When we looked at things that we wanted to make sure that we presented to our students, we wanted to make sure that it was very important to give them these skills to help them through their years of college, and also how do they prepare to go to college. So we will be talking about financial literacy on May 3rd at 7 p.m. We also do have upcoming other ones where we will be talking about a virtual college tour again with Swarthmore College. Swarthmore will be on to talk about Swarthmore and give us some information. One of the coolest things is that I was just watching Jeopardy's collegiate show, and Swarthmore had a student on there. So it is a known school, and I think that it was pretty cool that they had a representative make it to the championship round of Jeopardy for the collegiates. And then we're also going to have another webinar in May. It's going to be called Preparing for College, What to Expect and How to Navigate. So we will be sending those information out. Please be on the lookout for those. And once again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Kappa Foundation, for sponsoring these webinars. If you need any further information, my contact information is there, bjax01kappa@gmail.com. We appreciate you guys, and we look forward to seeing you on our next call.